Could this be the real secret? An ignition for manifestation? Have you ever noticed that sometimes the things that you want seem to appear in your life almost miraculously and effortlessly, and yet other times you can visualize, you can affirm, you can journal, you can script, you can meditate, you can do every single manifestation technique under the sun, and yet nothing seems to happen, nothing goes your way? Well, in the last 14 years of studying manifestation, including all the various different teachers around the world, I was once again going through one of Helen Hadsell's interviews recently and noticed something fascinating. And if you haven't heard of Helen Hadsell, she became known as the contest queen because over the course of her life, she won hundreds of prizes from competitions and became famous for her extraordinary ability to repeatedly create the outcomes she wanted, what you understand as luck. So naturally, people wanted to know her secret. Eventually, she developed what became known as the SPEC Method as a way of helping other people understand the process she believed was actually behind her success, behind her luck. But here's what I noticed, and it was mentioned in only one or two videos or interviews with Vishen Lakhiani, you know, the founder of Mind Valley. And to be honest, I don't even think he picked up the magnitude of what she was saying simply because he didn't really get curious and dig down and question it at the time. The more I listened to Helen speak, the more I realized that the method itself may not have been the real secret. And in fact, because I think she only gave this secret away this one or two times, and I'm sure she fully understood it, don't get me wrong, but of course, to the average person with all of our limiting beliefs and programming, it just seems too good to be true for the average person to fully believe. Because strangely, it wasn't even mentioned in her books. So firstly, let's take a look at Helen's method, SPEC, which stands for Select It, Project It, Expect It, Collect It. And for many people, this became the framework associated with Helen's extraordinary luck and success. And to be clear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this method. It's an excellent framework that does exactly what it says on the tin. It covers every element of manifestation, and more importantly, it works. But while listening to that interview she did with Vishen Lakhiani, I noticed an astonishingly simple insight that stopped me in my tracks. And the reason I noticed it was simply because I received an incredible insight myself, which I will also explain in a moment. What she said wasn't part of the SPEC method at all. It wasn't highlighted in her books. It wasn't something she spent a great deal of time teaching and explaining. In fact, one might say it was almost a sort of throwaway comment. Yet that statement, I believe, is actually the single most important thing she ever said about manifestation. It's more important than the SPEC method itself. Why? Because it's the very foundation of her method. It's the foundation for all methods of manifestation because it is the very foundation of manifestation itself. So what did she say? Well, I managed to find the recording.
What have you found to be specific tools or methods or systems that have worked for you, that have allowed you to stay focused, no matter how long it took, that have allowed you to stay focused on the outcome you were seeking?
I think if there'd be one answer to that, it would be how really, really much do you desire something? When you desire something, and then you're going to make it work because you're thinking about it. And, you know, as I said earlier, the power of positive thinking, you know, when Vincent Peale, when I read that book, and I was so impressed. And I'm the kind of a person that's got to prove things to myself. And that's when I started. It was a flippant way, like my husband wants a motor, a motor for his boat. Okay, how often did I think about that? All the time. I wanted him to have that boat motor. And yes, I gave it thought, And it was humorous because I kept saying, I wonder how long it's going to take them to let us know we won. And it took, I think, 2 or 3 weeks until the contest was over with. And then when they called him, I just assumed, okay, now what else do we want? It was flippant. It was a desire that was important to me.
Now, this question comes from Annette, and the question is, so let's say I want to win a particular contest. How many times should I enter? If I don't win the first time, do I keep entering? How does that process work?
Well, remember, in the contesting, there are so many contests. And if you enter something, and in my book I explain this, if I didn't win from one person or one particular contest, I keep entering the ones that are giving that prize until I win the prize, and that's it. These are opportunities. And remember when I talked about the contest queen, and she has this book out that there are contest clubs all over the world. And if you're really serious about entering contests to win prizes, I would highly recommend you visit one of these clubs and sit there and maybe become a member. It's just a desire is all they're doing, but they're very, very, very successful.
And when I heard this piece, something clicked. Because if Helen won hundreds of contests, prizes and opportunities throughout her life, and her conclusion after all those years was that desire is all you need, perhaps we've been focusing on the wrong thing all this time. Perhaps we've been obsessed with the methods, the techniques, the processes, whilst overlooking the very force that gives those techniques their power in the first place. Helen referred to just desire. In several videos, she explains that you don't need luck, a special background, or some unique cosmic favor. Intense focused desire is the foundational fuel, not visualization, not affirmations, not techniques, desire. And that's when I realized something else. Her SPEC method wasn't actually the source of her results. It was her attempt to explain something much deeper, something more technical. In these specific conversations with Vishen Lakhiani, Helen makes it very clear that you don't need complex, rigid systems to keep your mind on track. The ultimate tool, if you like, is this intensity of the desire itself. If you want it badly enough, you can almost taste it. Your mind will naturally hook into it until it manifests. And I have actually illustrated just this very concept in my chocolate chip cookie technique video. Because before you can select something, before you can project something, before you can expect something, and before you can even collect something, something else has to happen. You have to desire it. And I don't mean wishful thinking. I mean genuine desire, the kind of desire that pulls you forward, the kind that keeps returning no matter how many times you try to ignore it. I'm talking about the kind that just won't leave you alone. I believe desire is one of the most misunderstood forces, not just within manifestation, but arguably within our human design. Many people have been taught to distrust desire, to suppress it, to minimize it, to settle for less, that it's a bad thing. Yet, every invention, every company, every relationship, every achievement, every work of art began with desire. Every conscious act of creation begins with desire. Not just a thought, a desire. Thought is one of the many parts that makes up a desire, but it's my firm belief, and I say it with conviction, desire comes first. Think about this. You don't sit around randomly thinking about buying a beach hut, right? Something inside you first desires the freedom, the sand, the beach, the beauty, the space, the security. When the mind begins constructing images, Actually, I'll create another video for this concept of desire, what it is, what it's not, how it fits into manifestation, how it works, very shortly, because there are lots of nuances that we need to talk about. Because this is where something incredible happened in my own understanding of manifestation. For years, I studied manifestation, synchronicities, signs. In fact, I documented over 1,000, consciousness and the nature of reality. Then one day, an intuitive insight suddenly just appeared to me. I saw what I can only describe as a box of all creation. It presented itself as a physical box, an old sort of antique style box. But of course, that was probably just because the mind has so many associations. This is how I tried to interpret what it is that I saw. I perceived this box as what I can only describe as the field of infinite potentiality. A field or a realm of pure possibility, a realm where every possibility exists first as possibility before becoming physical reality, physical form, which reminds me of the concept of superposition in quantum mechanics, where multiple potential outcomes exist before one becomes reality. Now, for clarity, there are many names for this field. Modern physics calls it the quantum field, a field where all particles emerge from underlying quantum fields. Although, it has to be said, physicists wouldn't say every possible life experience exists there. In quantum mechanics, they call it the wave function because before measurement, our system is described as a range of probabilities. Some manifestation teachers loosely interpret this as a field of possibilities. In fact, David Bohm, who was a physicist himself, called it the implicate order. He proposed that reality unfolds from a deeper, hidden order containing all potential forms. Carl Jung called it collective unconscious, but this is more of a shared reservoir of archetypes and information. Rupert Sheldrake called it the morphic field, a controversial idea suggesting that information exists in fields that influence form and behavior. Consciousness researchers call it the field of potentiality, used frequently in consciousness studies and spiritual literature, and in various spiritual manifestation literature. In fact, investigative journalist Lynn McTaggart called it a non-local field connecting all things, and she popularized the term the field in her book of the same title. Neville Goddard called it infinite states. Whatever you choose to call it, I realize something really profound. Everything begins as a nothing. Well, of course, this is our construct of a nothing that we understand a nothing to be. Every business, every relationship, every book, every idea, every invention, every manifestation. At one point, we are led to believe that none of it existed. Then something happened. Desire emerged. Desire reached into the field of possibility and gave form to something that previously had no expression in the physical world. Now, I will definitely create a video on this very concept alone, which, to be honest, still blows my mind to this day. In many ways, manifestation is the process of bringing something from the invisible into the visible, from possibility into reality, from potential into experience. Desire is the bridge, not merely the thought, not merely visualization, desire. And this is why I think manifestation techniques often fail, because people become so obsessed with the method. They ask, am I visualizing correctly? Am I affirming correctly? Am I scripting using the right words? Am I using the right technique? What is the right technique? But they're focusing on the vehicle rather than the ignition and fuel. Desire is both ignition and fuel. Without desire, the technique is empty, it's null and void. But when desire is present, the technique becomes powerful. Helen Hadsell understood this. I don't think she won all those competitions because of SPEC per se. I think SPEC was simply the structure she used to help others understand what it was that she was doing naturally. The real power came from a clear desire coupled with complete expectation and belief. And perhaps this is why children often manifest so easily. They don't overcomplicate things. They desire something, they expect it, they move on. No resistance, no overthinking, no doubting, no overanalyzing every single little detail, just desire. I mean, have you ever witnessed the reaction of adults when a child says, "I want something"? They're often corrected, even castigated with phrases like, "Don't say I want, say, please may I have." Yeah, sure. I mean, this teaches good manners according to social dictums, but it also sends a deeper message within our psyche that wanting itself is somehow wrong, or that what we want must be earned, or that getting something comes at a price, which is why most people struggle to believe manifestation is a real mechanism of creation. Over time, many people learn to suppress, to minimize, to apologize for their desires. Yet if desire is the spark behind conscious creation, then perhaps one of the first things we lose is our willingness to fully own what we want. This is also why I believe desire sits at the very beginning of my 8-stage map of manifestation, at ground zero, if you will. Before activation, before the signs, before the synchronicities, before movement, desire. Because without desire, there is nothing to activate, nothing to create, nothing to manifest. Desire is the call. Reality is responding to the call. I've come to see desire as the match of manifestation. The flame isn't the desire. The flame's the outcome. The flame is the manifestation. But before the flame can exist, something has to ignite it. Something has to provide the initial spark. Desire is that spark. Desire is what sets the process in motion. Without desire, there is no vision. Without desire, there is no intention. Desire is intention. Without desire, there is no movement. Desire is the first signal sent into the universe that something new wants to be created. And perhaps the question isn't, what manifestation technique should I be using? Rather, I believe the better question we should be asking ourselves is, what do I truly desire? Because when desire becomes clear, everything else begins organizing itself around it. In essence, desire is not selfish. Desire is not only the spark of creation, it's also the organizing frequency that magnetizes your desired outcome to you. Now, I know this might seem controversial, so I'm going to break down the concept of desire in another video. So make sure to hit the bell button to be notified of my next video. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you believe desire is the true starting point of manifestation? And if so, what is the one desire that keeps calling to you, calling you forward no matter how many times you try to ignore it? Until next time, keep looking for the signs. Signs are evidence of manifestation because the universe and your higher self are always responding, always guiding you, and the universe always says yes. Are you saying yes to your most authentic desire?